We got a special guest this week. We have Miss Katina Harper, which is a real estate agent here in Arkansas. Say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
So what she's going to do now is drop some jewels on us. She has an event coming up. She has some different programs for new home buyers. And she's going to tell why this is important, especially for our community. So what I'm going to do is let you take over and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. So, as she said, I am Katina Harper, and I am a realtor here in Little Rock, Arkansas. I work with Start to Finish Realty, and I offer buying services, investment services, as well as selling services. So, I've been in real estate for 8 years total. I've been in real estate before the pandemic and then post-pandemic as well, two different worlds. I specialize in first-time homebuyer education and in working with what we call heroes in our community. So that's our first responders, our educators, any government position. Those of us who are serving our community, maybe more than we're serving ourselves. We have some special programs for that. And wealth building and generational wealth building is my specialty. Before you go out and get that apartment, go ahead and get that duplex. It's better money management and that. And so generational wealth and keeping the money within our communities and within our families, because I know that everyone is paying attention to what's happening in the economy right now. So I think that whereas I know a lot of people right now, and I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself, but I know a lot of people right now are afraid to buy. But if you think about it, look at what rent is doing. Look what, if you're a renter, you know what rent is doing. If you're a landlord, you're getting over. But if you are a renter, you know what rent is doing, and at least with a mortgage, it's fixed. And then it's appreciating in value, and then you get to realize that. If you're renting a home, a house, or an apartment, it's appreciating in value as well, but you're not going to see that increase or that benefit. And you don't have the security. And as a people, I really am passionate about African Americans achieving the American dream through home ownership, because real estate is a fixed investment, and it is, especially in the state of Arkansas, you are always, I'll say at least 80 to 95% of the time going to see an increase and a return on your investment over other forms of investment. I'm not saying not to diversify. You should have a portfolio. But real estate is one way to achieve, and it's a way to sustain wealth, especially when you have a health crisis or something. If you're a homeowner, you can stay in that house having a health crisis, but if you're in an apartment, they want that money in 30 days.
Okay, question. Many times,
yes,
especially in our community, we were taught growing up, I would say in a certain age range, that you can't have a house note, you can't have a car note. So what steps or how easy is it to actually get from point A to point B to realize the dream of home ownership instead of just getting that apartment?
That's a fantastic question. And believe it or not, the process and the documentation that you have to come up with is not much more than renting. It just depends on what your price point is. It's not much more difficult than renting an apartment, because, a lot of apartments want you to have 3 times the rent. They want you to have an income that's 3 times the rent. If you look at that as far as a mortgage, then that mortgage, you'll still end up paying less for the mortgage than you would for the rent. So basically, you're going to have, of course, the dreaded credit score. And I say dreaded because we dread it, but we shouldn't dread it. No matter what it is, if it's 400, if it's 800, you need to know.
At least you have a starting point of where you need to start working from.
Absolutely. And so the first step, go ahead and pull your own credit reports before you go to a lender. Of course, the lender is going to pull your credit reports, but we get a free credit report once a year through all of the different agencies for free. And so you should check it anywho. So go ahead and pull that. You need 2 years employment history and tax returns. And you're probably going to need to have some money in the bank. How much money in the bank just depends on the programs we have. And that speaks to what you were discussing earlier. So long story short, go ahead and pull your credit report and just see where you are. You got to start somewhere, because a year is going to pass by either way. You can spend a year working on your credit to get the house, or you can spend a year renting again. So, and with no plan for what the next year is. So you need your credit report. You need 2 years employment history verifiable. And again, there are programs that work with those of us who are self-employed. So that doesn't knock you out of the box. Like you said, there's a lot of myths
So
that
how
keep
would
us
that
from
work?
home.
So how would that work for independent music artists?
Okay, if you're an independent music artist, are you a business? Have you filed taxes? But here's the beauty of it. And I just worked with someone who was in a similar situation. So even if you say, well, I haven't filed taxes, have you made money? So lenders will even allow you to go and file those tax returns in arrears. So let's say you did make money in 2021, but you didn't file. You can still go back and file those taxes. And as long as you have 2 years of tax returns, even if you're an independent artist, there are programs that will work with you based on your credit score. So it's like an algorithm. So everyone is different. So you may have a high credit score, but you may have low residuals and other things someone else may have. The best piece of advice that I can give you is to go to the lender. And I'm working with Cadence Bank right now on some deals. Go to the lender. Why? Because every person is different, and you don't want to say, okay, well, this works for me, so, but it's not going to work for you, or this didn't work for me, so it's not going to work for you. So every person is different. So you can, that is a myth buster. You can be an independent artist and you can still own property, and you should have a business so that you can own more than one property, so that you can also become an investor. You can get that studio and you can write that studio off, but we won't get into all those things. But yes, artists, you can.
Okay. Tell us about this event that you have coming up this weekend.
Okay. So this Saturday from 12:30 until 2:30, I'll be in the River Market at the Roberts Library, and we'll be hosting heroes in the community. We've got the educators again that I mentioned, our first responders and that. But I've got about a handful of spaces left. So if you want to reserve a spot, if you'd like to RSVP, it's at katinasalesrealestate@gmail.com. That's Katina with a K, Katina, salesrealestate@gmail.com. And you can reserve a space, but we're going to go over things like credit. We're going to go over the various types of programs. We're going to discuss student loans. And I know that there are a lot of people who believe that they cannot get a home because they have so many student loans.
And that is true.
Another myth.
Look, that is not true.
Another myth. That's another myth. You can become a homeowner with student loans. So if you don't get to come to the event, again, it is this Saturday from 12:30 to 2:30 in the River Market at the Roberts Library. If you can't make it, or if we run out of space, email me and we can do a private one-on-one consultation. And again, that's katinasalesrealestate@gmail.com. But yes, I love busting these myths, and I am also an educator, and I love answering questions, because if we are knowledgeable, then we're prosperous. I don't know anyone who's prosperous who's not knowledgeable.
Okay, so tell us about some of the programs that you work with.
Okay, so we have some grant programs, and I say we, and that is, I work for Start to Finish Realty, but right now I've been working with Cadence Bank. So there are some programs that can offer you up to $10,000 to $20,000 for a first-time home buyer for your down payment and closing cost assistance. That's a fabulous program. There are programs for people who do have the student debt. If you can get into a program, then you may have been told that you can't get a home because your debt to income ratio is lopsided. They have programs that allow you to work with that. So that is one of the major programs that they're going to be discussing Saturday, and I'm excited about that one because that's going to help a lot of people that I know. There are also some programs for those if you live in a rural area. Now, they've been closing in on those areas because, we found out that's how a lot of people were getting homes, and you didn't understand how these people building these
That's the
palatial
USDA
spreads.
rural development.
Absolutely, and you know it. And so yes, they've lessened
I
the zip
like
codes
that
on that one.
because now they could have changed some things on it, but back in the day when I was looking at it, if you live like 5 to 10 miles outside of a town that had 50,000 people, then you own land, then it was zero down, which was good if you wanted to stay in the country. But if you wanted to stay in
Uh-huh.
the suburbs, that wouldn't work.
And that's the thing about that. But I have some people, some good friends who live in the country, and they like rural living. So that's a program. And
I
I don't
grew
know, a
up in
lot of
the
people.
country. I don't want to go back.
I would say that's not my cup of tea either, but I'll say that since the pandemic, a lot of people are wanting to move farther out. A lot of people who were living. There's people who I've sold the house in the city years back, and they've moved out into the country. And again, the pandemic made a lot of people, I guess, but I'm not one. But if if you were interested in rural living, then we have those programs, and there are also programs, of course, for veterans. I don't know if you have any veterans, and again, you don't have to have been a veteran. A veteran means 1 year. You don't have to be a retired veteran. Or you don't have to be a disabled veteran. If you are a veteran, if you serve this country, give me a call and let's get you into a home, because I think the country owes you that.
You know what? I got a friend that works with veterans, and I am going to give her your number.
Please do. Thank you. I will fight for them the way they fought for us, because I just think every veteran to me should have a home.
Okay.
I do believe that.
So,
That's the program that I can think of.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So being in Arkansas and knowing, I would say, and this is just a true fact, that once you get past Little Rock going down south, how the pay goes down. Does the price of housing go down also, or is it still about the same within the...
So, but yes, the cost of a home typically mirrors whatever the standard cost of living is in the area. So price per square footage would be less in even say Pine Bluff than it probably is in Little Rock. However,
but I know that what I was paying for rent, that's what my mortgage is. There was only like a couple of dollars difference. So I am not tripping, because I was already staying in a place where they hadn't actually went up on the rent. But just looking at everything that's going on in Pine Bluff, such as building a new hotel onto the casino, having the new dispensaries, doing revitalization neighborhoods where they have grants for that area. So doing all of those things. And I remember when I used to stay in California, how gentrification happened. And I feel like it's a form of gentrification developing now in Pine Bluff. And if you're going to buy, now is the time to buy.
I don't disagree with you. And again, you are correct as far as expansion happening down in that area. And for those, a couple of things on that. If you have family property and you live in Pine Bluff, or if people have moved on, because it happens, they need to make sure to secure their property, make sure those taxes are paid, and that, because again, speaking to the generational wealth, hold on to the properties that you already have first. But as far as buying other properties, absolutely. And if I could recommend anything, if there are any multifamilies, because that is a strategy also. So let's say, there is a triplex, or even, a fourplex. A first-time home buyer could move into one, and then those other units
Rent the other and have the income to pay the mortgage.
And the bank will give you credit for it. So as opposed to that being a liability, that becomes an asset. So each one of those units that you rent, that is now added on to what your monthly income is, as far as the bank goes. I would recommend, especially even lots, even vacant lots. I would buy them and hold on to them. And especially in the Pine Bluff area right now, you could probably buy vacant lots for in the hundreds, not even the thousands of dollars. And I would pick up a couple.
Not now. I have a few vacant lots, and I didn't get
Yeah.
anything in the hundreds, but I did buy
Really.
some land over by Lake Saracen, right by the lake.
Mhm.
And I am gonna hold on to that because eventually I want to put another house there. So my water property, I am not going to let go of.
And you should not. And you should not. If anything, build, and then if you want to Airbnb it or something like that. But I definitely wouldn't let that go.
I never
Any
thought
water.
about the
If I have
Airbnb. That's
waterfront property,
another form of income because my show is I would say geared towards helping everybody, but especially people who's working in the music industry because they work so hard and people think that they quote unquote supposed to get all this money, but music can actually be steady money.
sure, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, making wise choices and investments as an artist, because I haven't, I guess I have lived, not the music industry artist, but I'm a jewelry artist. And so I put
Hmm.
myself through college
Same
making
thing. It's the
jewelry.
art.
I was a river market vendor for 10 years, and I gigged, so I understand. So yes, when you get those gigs that pay well, it is good to go ahead and plop that down on a piece of property and hold, right? Hold or rent. Find ways to utilize it. Buy small commercial properties, because commercial properties,
Make good
sometimes
help.
there's people who absolutely. Those sometimes you can scoop those up a little faster even than the residential. The business went out of business 20 years ago. There's an heir that lives in California. They don't know it, they don't care anything about it, and you can pick that up. And even if you use it for storage or an event center, just be creative. Artists are creative anyway. So acquisition, just acquire, but use a real estate agent. I'm not saying that because I am one, or maybe I am, but I'm saying that because okay, just like what's the song? Record company people are shady, real estate people are shadier. So you definitely need
Sometimes,
you need,
sometimes, let me tell you something. My cousin was getting ready to buy a house in California, and the real estate agent that she had kept taking her to undesirable locations,
that's
and
against the law.
she had to let the real estate agent go and go look for her own because I don't know if it was a racial thing, but that real estate agent was not trying to put her in the best that she could.
And that's called steering for those who are thinking of getting your realtor's license. That's called steering, and that is against the law. We don't make any assumptions about clients and where they belong. We based on everything we go to will be based on your desires and whatever your pre-approval goes for, whatever is in your budget. If it says that you're $1 million customer, then we'll go to $1 million neighborhoods. If it says that you are 1,000 there, I'll pick you the best 1,000 there property that I can find. But that is against the law. That's called steering. It's akin to redlining. It really is. It's the sister to redlining. And so when you see that type of malpractice, that's when you know that again, a lay person may not know, but a realtor does, and that's why you need a realtor. You need a realtor because people do what's in their best interest financially.
Okay, so what are some
And if
other
you're
practices that we should be aware of?
For instance, again, go with a realtor because I know you guys know that the scams are through the roof right now. So there's so many scams in real estate. For instance, this happened to a friend of mine, but because she's a friend of mine, it didn't get to go through to fruition. So a home had just sold. So there's a small window in between the time when a home sells and when it's recorded, the deed is recorded.
That's
So let's
escrow,
say
right?
hmm,
That escrow?
so it's after escrow. Let's say so after when you first bought your home, for a few days it doesn't show up as yours. It's caught right. It's everything's in the mail. All the paperwork is in the mail. The deed is not recorded with the courthouse yet.
Okay.
So there's a small window. So you have these scammers because of that small window who are actually going into houses that have just closed or that are closing, and they're pretending to be landlords and renting them out to people. or pretending to own the home. Or this has happened. A person who had owned the home, they caught someone in that window. And if you go online, not if your realtor goes online, but if you go online, it looks as if that person still owns that house and you bought it from them. And they said, I don't want, let's not use real estate agents. That just takes more money out of it. That way, I don't have, I'm upside down. And so that'll just put me further down. And that way we don't have to worry about credit or anything. You can just assume my loan, give me $10,000, things like that. So there are a lot of, we're learning about more and more of them every day. Mm-hmm. Also, of course, the condition of a home. So any realtor worth his or her salt is going to tell you that to get an inspection. If you have a person who is not a realtor, they'll think, okay, well, I want to save that $400. That $400 can cost you thousands, tens of thousands. So they're just practices that realtors know. We're going to make sure that you can get free and clear title to the home, because some people have liens or encumbrances on it, and you don't know that, or you don't know to look for that. So yeah, just different things. And also, even though I'm not a loan officer, I will say that I have lost business by saying that's a bad loan. Because again, I'm a community servant first. And for instance, when the crash came back in 2007, I was a realtor then. So you would have people getting an 80-20 loan. So say, for instance, if you only qualified for $100,000, but the house you wanted was $120,000 back then, you would have two loans. You would have one for the $100,000 and one for the $20,000. And whereas that sounds like, okay, that's doable. But then,
That's two mortgages.
It is, and then one of them has a balloon payment on it. So that $20,000 one, come December of next year, they want all $20,000 of that right then. And then if you default on it, now you're foreclosed on. And that was, and I said that's not a good loan. I only need one loan for one property. I don't need two loans for one thing. I don't care what it is. But the client went with someone else, and I saw her years later, and of course she had been foreclosed on, because who can do that? Mm-hmm. And especially at that time, and these balloons, again, $20,000, $30,000. I've seen $60,000 balloon payments.
Oh, heck no. Look, I learned about consumer education in the 6th, 7th grade. We learned about balloon payments in elementary. Grown people should not be making those types of mistakes.
Well, I will say this. Many of us are not as financially literate as we should be. And I think you know that for sure. These are we talked about the myths. Sometimes in our communities, we have not done a good job of discussing finances. Some generations didn't think that was kids' business. And so you have people growing up and they're killing their credit. Their credit is already damaged. They're not even 21.
And I wondered about that growing up, and I found that parents who have decent credit add their children as an authorized user to several of their credit cards. They don't have access to them, but it builds their credit. So when they start working and they're finished with school, or if they just get a stable job, they're able to go out and buy a home at 21, 22 years old. And I was like, how are they doing that? And that's what parents are doing. So that's what I tried to do with my children, add them as authorized users. So when they got out of school, they were banging with the credit and could do whatever they wanted.
Yes. Absolutely. And now I'm looking at people getting LLCs for their kids as they're in high school, so that by the time they get out, they now have a thriving business, and a business that's gone. They've been in business 3 or 4 years. My son started a business in high school, and he still has it. It's taken some turns, but I know that he's been able to do a lot better during the pandemic than some people who didn't have access to that. And we have to have those conversations. Again, they're getting out and they can buy a home, but then what will they end up doing? Many times, especially if they're in an urban area, then they'll end up buying one of those multi-units, like we said. And then now they have income coming in from that. And you're trying to figure out, how is this kid just fresh out of college and they're taking vacations out of the country and all these other things? It's not because they're smarter. It's just set up better.
Yeah, because that'll give you your mortgage money. It will give you your utility money and your savings. And then you're working.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And as you said about artists, again, because we know that artists a lot of times struggle with producing sometimes documents that are bank friendly. Um, Real estate is a viable business. As an artist, if you acquire a couple of properties, then that legitimizes you and that gives you some collateral to do bigger and better things that you want to do with your art. I just think as artists, if we could be smarter, like I've worked with a guy, Kevin Cressy, and we discussed that, but thankfully, I think his wife was handling the finance. He said, I just want to be an artist. And a lot of artists.
No, that they need to have. It should not be hard for an artist to be able to produce documents to buy a house, because you get a quarterly check from your publishing, from your digital publishing, which is Sound Exchange, also from Harry Fox, from Song Trust. So you're getting all these different, they're giving you a check or a direct deposit. They're taking taxes out of it. You're doing your W-4s and everything. So if an artist is having a problem producing documents for the bank, that means they hadn't done what they're supposed to do as an artist.
And that I agree with that. I don't disagree. And hopefully more of them are paying attention and doing all of those things, because that's all you need.
That's what I do.
Good. Yes, because that's all you need is that paper trail. Even if you do lashes. I had a woman get a house because she does lashes. Okay. That's what she does. Okay? But
money is money. They don't care what you do as long as it's stable.
And it's documented. It's that documentation that sometimes throws us off. And so again, with real estate, that's all it is. It's just documentation. Buying a home is simply documentation. The way to look at it is either I'm going to do it now or I'm going to do it later, but I am going to do it. So if you go to the lender and the lender says, oh my God, your credit is 490 and your credit is 490 and you don't have a stable work history. Okay, now you know where to start. So now you at least know where to start, and you've also started a relationship. You've begun a relationship with this particular lender, and they will keep reaching out to you and coach you through, and just keep working on it. Because again, 6 months or a year or 2 years is going to pass either way. So.
Okay. Well, I thank you for coming.
Well, thank you.
And I thank her for coming. It is Lunch and Learn on October the 19th from 12 to 2 p.m. at the Roberts Library on Clinton Avenue in Little Rock, Arkansas. So if you get a chance, come out and meet with her if you're in the business of buying a home, even if you're an artist. Bye.
Hey girl, let me tell you about this podcast.
Girl, everybody has a podcast these days.
But this one interviews new and interesting indie artists. It's called Indie Artist Music Hustle with Blonde Intelligence.
Really? Where can I find it?
It's on all podcasting platforms, streams live on social media, and on rpentradio.com.
What'd you say it was called again?
It's called Indie Artist Music Hustle with Blonde Intelligence.
Girl, I'm gonna have to check her out.
Give it a check, girl.